Have you ever shared something in therapy and then left the therapy doors and immediately felt like you wanted to shrivel up and hide yourself and shrink forever? Let's talk about it. In IFS therapy, we're very aware that humans are complex and that we're made up of a ton of different complex parts. In therapy, the goal is that there's a lot of safety for all parts to be welcome and to show up. And so it's possible that a young, wounded, vulnerable part may have felt safe to speak. Maybe this part shares something really vulnerable that it hasn't felt safe enough to share in the past with somebody else. It feels seen, witnessed, heard, and it's like, yes, this is what I needed. And then you leave therapy and you re-enter your day-to-day environment and you notice this part of you turn on that's like, why the did you just say that? That was so embarrassing. You shouldn't have shared that. And it can feel like a vulnerability hangover. That embarrassed feeling is a protective part that's trying to prevent you from your past experiences when vulnerability was not necessarily safe and held.
I can tell you 110% without a doubt that embarrassment and general disgust that you feel for yourself for falling for and caring about and being attracted to that narcissist that came into your life and led you on and manipulated you and tried to make you feel like you're absolutely nothing to them and how everyone else is good enough to be in their life, but you're not shit. When you take a step back and look at that person for who they really are, just some lying, manipulative, like dirty, like disgusting human being that, you know, their entire persona is just a front for what they actually are. When you see them for who they actually are, you're not going to be attracted to them anymore.
But I posted a video about some Halara leggings and didn't realize until this morning when I had posted it last night, a scheduled post, didn't realize that I showed way too much. I can't even tell you how embarrassed I am right now. Like my first reaction was, of course, take it down. Then I was like, I'm never posting again. I can't ever show my face again.
Many people are walking around with a very specific kind of shame, and they don't always know how to name it. It's not just insecurity. It's not exactly loneliness either. It is that sinking feeling that maybe the way you love, the way you speak, you need, react, act, hope, feel, or attach is somehow heavier than other people can hold. Like your emotional presence lands too strong, too honest, too eager, too available, too deep, too expressive, too sensitive, just too much. And once that idea gets into somebody's head, it starts changing how they move. They become careful, measured, edited, not because they've become calmer, but because they are scared of being felt too fully again. That's the hidden part people don't talk about enough. The shame doesn't always come from one dramatic rejection. Sometimes it comes from little moments piling up, people pulling back, responses getting colder, energy changing, someone looking overwhelmed when you were only being sincere. A person can start shrinking long before they realize they are doing it.
A lot of the times, I'm scared to do certain things because I think that people perceive me the way that I perceive myself. Sometimes I restrict my access to certain people, not because they've done anything wrong, but because I don't want to seem overbearing or really annoying. But I don't think that's anything to do with them because they've never given me the feeling or they've never given me the sense that that might be the case. It's more so because a part of me believes that I might be annoying. I think a lot of the times scared to be ourselves because we might think that someone else will perceive us a way that we ever so slightly perceive ourselves. So that stops us from interacting with people, being our full selves. Like, I might restrict the amount that I speak to someone so they don't become overwhelmed because a part of me very much believes, a part of me ever so slightly believes that I'm a lot of a person. So I need to allow people to have me in doses because if they have me all together, they might become overwhelmed. And this is never ever something that them themselves have made me believe. Along the way, I've started to believe about myself. When someone can't give you everything that you need, sometimes you start to think, okay, cool, I'm too much. Or in the past, if you've heard like, you're too loud, you're too this, you're too that, you start to believe, okay, again, I need to shrink myself. Maybe I'm just too much. And then in the future, you start to have these certain beliefs about yourself. No one else believes it but you. So you restrict certain friendships from growing. This is me. You restrict certain relationships from growing because you think that everyone feels the same way that you feel about yourself, but no one sees you that way. Sometimes when you're speaking to people, you might think, oh, they're not listening. Why do you think that? And I feel like it might be because a part of you believes that the things that you have to say aren't worth listening to. Maybe that's because over the years, people have just told you to shut up. What are you talking about? You don't even know what you're talking about. Da, da, da. And all these small comments, guys, they integrate into your self-esteem.
Learning to shrink yourself inside a traumatic family system is something that many survivors never find the words for. It's really a response that often begins before you even have language, because your body just knows that being less visible might mean being less hurt. It often becomes so second nature that by adulthood, it's hard to even imagine another way of being. Finding your voice can feel uncomfortable because you've spent so many years minimizing your existence. You're doing something that your younger self never got to do. You're taking up space, you're staying connected, and that's really the work.
Okay, so I feel like I'm at this really good place where I can feel the resistance inside of my body, like deadass. I feel like what I'm feeling inside of me right now, and I feel like in my shoulders and in my chest, is that I go out of my way to try to control things that I got no business controlling. And I'm causing resistance in my own life. You feel me? Like, I'm realizing I'm stifling myself. Like, I have so many things that I want to say and share, and I always talk myself out of it. And it's like, for what reason am I doing that? Like, there's literally nothing to lose other than what I'm telling myself that I have to lose. But if me being who I'm meant to be means that I lose those things, then it is what it is. What is my business controlling that? When I'm sitting here feeling like I'm shrinking and making myself smaller and smaller and smaller and quieter and quieter and quieter, that doesn't do anything for me. Like, the things that I have to say matter, regardless of anything. Like, if I have something to express, then it should be expressed, regardless.
The label too much does a lot of damage because it's vague enough to sink in deeply. If someone tells you you are rude, dramatic, clingy, loud, needy, overbearing, at least those are specific. You can argue with them. You can reject them. But too much is slippery. It doesn't tell you what exactly was wrong. It just leaves you with the impression that your natural size, emotionally speaking, is inconvenient. That can get into everything you do. How you text, how often you text, how quickly you open up, how much enthusiasm you show, how many questions you ask, whether you say I miss you, whether you admit something hurt, whether you let yourself be excited in public. You start self-managing all of it. And after a while, you stop asking, was the person emotionally unavailable, avoidant, distracted, immature, or just wrong for me? Instead, you ask, how do I become easier to digest? That is a hard question to build a personality around.
I grew up in a family where I was often told I'm too much. And they didn't say it directly like too much, but there were words that were used, like you're being oversensitive, you're being manipulative, you're being dramatic, they never said annoying, but I could feel the irritation and annoyance in the room when my presence was there, or when I was crying and they were like, oh, please stop, like, we don't have time for this. So that unconsciously, without me even realizing, just dropped this thing of my emotions are too much. Who I am is too much.
I spent years being agreeable and I lost myself in the process. I forgot how to actually want things, not because I didn't care, but because I stopped asking myself what I actually wanted. And by not working that muscle, I could not actually know what I wanted. For years, I just described myself as the easygoing, chill person, the person who would go with the flow, but really I was just afraid to take up space. I stopped saying what I wanted because I thought being low maintenance made me more lovable, especially with friendships and family. But here's the problem. When you forget to ask yourself what you actually want, your voice gets quieter and you lose it. I got so good at saying I'm fine that I didn't even notice how often I wasn't.
I made $111 yesterday. And I know somebody's going to be like, oh yeah, that's great. That's amazing. Or that's not a lot of money. What the hell? The backstory is I worked 11 hours. I came in early because my boss said he needed me. I worked my ass off and I made $111. And I know you're still saying that's great. I had to tip out 17 of those dollars to the bar and then 8 of those dollars to the busser. Yes, I had to tip out $25 of the $111 I made after working an 11-hour shift yesterday. And after everything, there was just bullshit and drama. And I just realized that in the moment I told my manager what was going on, and he just sat there and invalidated my feelings. And then let the other girl, basically gave her a pass. And I'm just like, you do realize that she should have been held accountable for her actions. But instead, you decided to invalidate my feelings, make this a me problem, while not holding her any accountability. And I realize this is going to continue because nothing changes unless nothing changes. So I think it's about time for me to get going.
What people rarely say out loud is that being called too much of it means you brought more reality than the connection could hold. That's different. Sometimes you were not excessive. You were just honest in a situation built on low emotional effort. Sometimes you were not needy. You were just trying to create actual closeness with someone who only had room for convenience. Yes, it happens that sometimes you weren't intense. You just cared in an environment where detachment is treated like maturity. That changes the whole picture. Because if someone keeps finding themselves too much in shallow spaces, the conclusion should not automatically be that they need to become smaller. It may mean they keep ending up around people whose emotional range is narrow, whose availability is performative, or whose comfort depends on everything staying light and easy. And if that happens enough times, a person can start feeling ashamed of qualities that were never wrong to begin with. That is the real injury.
I feel like I can't even enjoy myself in conversations. I'm too worried about saying something that could be taken wrong or could upset someone, and then when the conversation's over, I just analyze every single thing that I said. Did you grow up in an environment where you weren't free to speak your mind or share your emotions? Maybe the chosen theme of the household was repression, and if you did say anything wrong, it caused an emotional, upsetting reaction from your parents or other people around you. So now you filter and moderate every single word that comes out of your mouth to make sure that you don't cause a reaction in anyone else. Maybe you weren't taught that truth or honest contribution to a conversation was important, but instead sugarcoating and refraining from causing chaos and a manufactured stability was the ultimate act of kindness you could do for your family or your community. So now anytime you feel harsh or reveal any amount of truth or vulnerability in a conversation, you worry that you've stirred unwanted emotions or upset the order.
Overthinking every text message that you send, rehearsing conversations before they even happen, and replaying interactions for days.
Really don't think that most of y'all understand that you are easy to love. And I hate the messaging of having to prove your worth, having to prove yourself in love, whether it's in love with friendships or in love with romantic situations or in love with family where we have to prove our worthiness. I do not subscribe to that notion. And also the people that I'm in community with, I don't hold them to the expectation of proving or worthiness. I simply just love you for who you are. And I think this conversation of love has to be talked about more and more and more. As someone, I'm one of those people, if I really connect with you, especially from a friendship perspective, like I will tell you that I love you first day. Like I feel deeply connected to the people that I'm connected with because I do have a strong sense of discernment and intentionality in the way that I approach life, and I approach life with a tender heart. And I also am someone, again, that has a strong sense of discernment. And so I'm not just saying this to everybody that I meet. I love you, I love you, I love you. I'm not saying that to every stranger I meet. But those that I truly feel that intensity and passion with, I express it, because I'm of the belief that my love for you is not for me to keep. And this doesn't only happen in friendship. This has also happened in like romantic and dating situations where I don't need 6 months to know if I love you. And also, my love isn't attached to you have to be my man today. And I think that is another conversation for another time that has a lot of nuances. But ultimately, in the root of it is I don't believe in performative scripting in love or in life, period.
There's a difference between emotional chaos and emotional depth. A lot of people confuse the two because they were never taught how to handle one without fearing the other. So yes, some people do overwhelm others. That's real. But a lot of people have also been taught to treat normal human needs as excess, to treat directness as pressure, to treat tenderness as risk, to treat enthusiasm as desperation. That's why the right kind of connection can feel almost shocking. You say the thing you usually hold back, and the other person doesn't flinch. You ask for reassurance, and they don't make you feel childish. You show real excitement, real sadness, real care, and instead of acting burdened, they stay. That's when people realize something painful and healing at the same time. Maybe I was never too much. Maybe I was just offering depth in rooms built for performance. That realization doesn't fix everything, but it does loosen the shame. And shame is often what keeps people locked in self-erasure long after the original rejection is over.
As someone that grew up in an emotionally unavailable and neglectful household, it's been really difficult to understand the difference between being loved and being chosen. When you have this gap that's created somatically, your brain understands it, but your body does not. It keeps you looping and stuck in relationships where you're always accepting breadcrumbs. For example, being loved is that high intensity emotions, the excitement, the butterflies in your stomach, the passionate and loving sex. It's the attention, the gifts, the love bombing, all of these little things that don't actually benefit your life long term. Being chosen is quiet. It's the everyday details, being mindful of your needs. They take you into consideration in all of their decisions. While they are building their life, they are envisioning their future, you are always a part of it. There's no doubt in your mind that that person always holds a space for you in their life. What keeps a lot of us stuck is when someone does love you. Like, they do love you. You can tell that they love you. They adore you. They are mesmerized by you, by your existence. You enjoy their company. They somatically feel safe. You can rest. It's like a deep breath when you're with them, but they still don't choose you. They don't actively hold space for you to exist in their lives. This creates cognitive dissonance where your mind and your body are fighting each other all of the time because it doesn't make any logical sense. Why is it that someone that loves me can't choose me?
I'm 44 years old, and it's taken me 44 years to realize I'm not too much. I am who I am, and I'm allowed to have all of these feelings and all of these desires and all of these things that are me. And if someone feels like that's too much, it triggers their feelings of feeling like they can't deal with crying or anger or having those conversations that leans into their darkness or into their inability to often be emotionally available.
I am going to preface this video with the fact that I am not a pretty crier, and I never claimed to have been. And what I went through today is probably because of my period that's going to start in about 3 days. Also, my boyfriend is an absolute saint. So, here we go. Today I went through every emotional state you could possibly go through in a long-distance relationship. I went through, am I too much? Are you enough? Am I enough? Are we enough? are we gonna make it? Is this really gonna last? Questioning communication. Like, are we communicating well? Are we still having the deep conversations? Are our conversations too superficial? Like, do you really know me? Do I really know you? And the whole time, through my up and down emotional roller coaster, he's just telling me how much he cares and how we're gonna make it work. Because we love each other and we have to. And he's trying to understand and trying to come up with solutions and trying to put me at ease. And not once did he tell me that I was being too much or unrealistic or over exaggerating. It was just, what can we do? How do we make this better?
I used to think that honesty and clear communication brought clarity to a situation. And I've actually learned recently that it breeds distance, and I'll tell you why. So if you're around emotionally immature, emotionally unavailable, or narcissistic type personalities, any type of truth that you present them with, that is threatening to their sense of self. It threatens their sense of self and how other people perceive them. So in turn, they make you the enemy. I grew up in a type of family where anytime there was some semblance of conflict, we talked about it and we came to a mutual understanding, and you understood mutually both sides, or at least tried to get there. And this is the differentiating factor that I've had to learn too. Not everybody wants conflict resolution. People would rather you live in ambiguity or lies about them or themselves if that allows them to keep the specific narrative that they want in a situation. And then unfortunately, you become the problem, or you're too difficult because you're actually the one trying to solve things, and they don't want that. And this is an isolating experience, at least in my opinion, but it unfortunately is the harsh reality or the truth when you deal with emotionally immature, unavailable, or narcissistic type personalities.
Babe, just know that the right person won't ever make you think that you're being too much, okay? After being in a relationship for 5 years, now that I'm dating again and things don't work out, yada, 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 the first thing that I do and I need to stop doing is telling myself that I was being too much, that I was being too excited, that I texted back too soon, that I texted back too long, that I was showing too much interest, blah, blah, blah. And I know that is not true. And I know that I bring a lot to the table, and I know my worth and my time. But what I need you to know is that the right person will never make you think that you're being too much. Things don't work out for a reason, and I need you to acknowledge that. The right person will come along and they will love every single inch and piece of you, and I need you to not shrink yourself down to the people that can't handle you, okay? I love you. You're not being too much, so they're just not enough for you, okay? Yeah.
I saw a quote that said, I knew he was different because when he put his hands on me, I felt safe instead of disgusting. And honestly, that feeling matters more than people actually think, because your body knows things before your mind can actually explain them. When you've been hurt before, your body usually tightens, right? You flinch, you pull back, you brace yourself. So when someone touches you and your body doesn't panic, that's not random. That's your nervous system saying, I'm not in danger right now. Safe touch feels calm. It feels steady. It feels slow. There's no pressure, no rush, no fear of what comes next. And here's the part people don't talk about. Feeling safe doesn't mean perfect. It doesn't mean forever. It just means in that moment, your body can breathe. And if you've ever only known touch that felt confusing or heavy or wrong after, then safe can feel shocking, not exciting, not intense, just peaceful. Pay attention to that, because real connection doesn't make your body feel sick. It doesn't make you feel small. It lets you stay present.
Someone made you feel like you were too much, too ambitious, too loud, too emotional, too driven, too sensitive. And somewhere along the way, you started believing them. You started making yourself smaller. quieter, more palatable. You learned how to shrink so that other people could feel comfortable around you. And you got so good at it that you forgot what the full version of you even felt like. But here's the truth. You were never too much. You were just too much for them. And the right people, they will never ask you to shrink. They'll actually hand you a bigger stage and they will match your energy. They'll celebrate what others found threatening about you. So stop editing yourself for people who can't handle the full version of you.
The hidden tragedy here is how many people have learned to become emotionally smaller in order to remain acceptable. Not more peaceful, not more secure, just smaller, less expressive, less expectant, less honest, less visible in what they feel. And then the world turns around and calls that maturity. Sometimes it's maturity, but other times it is self-protection wearing a calm face. There is a real cost to spending years making yourself easier for people who were never going to meet you properly anyway. It can leave you fluent in restraint, but estranged from your own emotional shape. That's why I don't take the most important question as, am I too much? And the better question might be, who taught me that I had to become less in order to be loved comfortably? Have you ever felt like you had to emotionally shrink yourself just to stay acceptable to people? Tell me what you think or what you've lived in the comments. And stay with The Ugly Truth for more conversations about the private shame people carry in public silence.